Contrarians Log number 6. Today we're going to be reviewing all of the Star Wars shows, ranking it using a meme that I found. I thought it was hilarious because of Norm Macdonald. He's my favorite comedian. I think he's the best comedian of all time, and he's just the epitome of sounds dumb but is smart. Like, that just defines him. I've seen all of his specials. I've listened to his book. I've just watched hours and hours of him on YouTube. As for the other people on this meme, I've seen clips, and from the clips that I've seen, it kind of seems like this meme kind of rings true. I do know this guy's pretty dang smart. I don't understand half the words that he says. Now we got a clean template. Let's go through all of the movies and rank them. Alright, so first, the one that started it all. So where does Star Wars go? I'm calling it Star Wars because that's what its original name is. A New Hope was something that was kind of added, like in the 90s or something. And the way I'm ranking them is the perception of how people thought the film was gonna be when it came out. I think filmgoers in general didn't even register. Like, it was just like, okay, science fiction film, okay, that'll be like another Star Trek, where the sci-fi nerds and geeks of the time were like, that looks like it's probably gonna be good, let's check that out. This film is definitely looks smart, is smart, but a rule that I'm going to use while ranking these films is closer it is to the borders, more influence it is to that. So if I were to put a film like right here, then it was just like everybody thought it was smart, and it was smart when you break it down. Now let's go to The Empire Strikes Back. This was a big look smart, is smart film. And let's put that where he belongs, which would be right over here, I think. I mean, I'm kind of thinking of it as its current perception and also how people thought of it when it first came out. I would say this is still in the look smart, is smart category. My complaint about this film is the whole Ewok segment of the film was kind of dumb, and I know that everybody loves the Ewoks and that they're super cute, but it was kind of a dumb, everybody was like, oh, he's just trying to sell cute toys. The fact that the Ewoks took down the Empire was really weird, or helped take down the Empire. Han Solo or Harrison Ford was really phoning it in on this film. He was already starting the Indiana Jones series, so I think he cared a lot more about that, and he already said that the character should have died in this film or previous episode, so he really was kind of done mentally with this. I'm kind of just going in the order of when the show's release, with some exceptions, and we're starting the prequels. So episode 1, I would say that based off of what it looked like when the trailers came out and just the perception of the time, like, everybody was really hyped about it. I know the first trailer slapped really well, so I would say that this is a look smart, is dumb film. This category, unfortunately, is gonna need a lot of space. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but most of Star Wars is very dumb, which that's kind of, when you look at the Pareto distribution, that's kind of just how things are whenever especially when it comes to franchises. The reason why I'm putting it bordering the is smart is because the actual story of episode 1 and the prequels is pretty good. The whole idea of, like, there's a government and it's kind of filled with bureaucracy, and a bad actor takes advantage of that and kind of covertly turns it into an empire, kind of dictatorship thing. It's a really fascinating story idea, and even the Jedi and the Padawan and the apprentice and how the Jedi Order works is interesting. So all of the ideas are great. Like, George Lucas has phenomenal ideas. So that's why I put it in the look smart and bordering the is smart. The story is, but the execution is kinda bad. Attack of the Clones is another look smart but is dumb. Like, the trailer was like you see like clone troopers, Boba Fett character, you see kind of an older Anakin, which was like, okay, good, we're not dealing with like weird kid actors anymore, and yeah, it looked interesting. But when it comes down to the story, it continued the story of episode 1, but it had like a lot of weird unfinished ideas in it, like the whole clone and Master Sifo Dyas. Feels like that whole story wasn't even completed. It was like, okay, so where's this going, who is this guy that they're talking about, and then it just continues with the rest of the film. It was like, it seemed like an unfinished plot point. But yeah, so it is, yeah, touching the is dumb, looks dumb, but it is in the sound smart. This one is the best of the prequels, so it definitely looked good because the trailer looked good and then the actual movie was pretty good. It contradicted some things in the original trilogy, which is really weird. It's still not good. It's still not in the is smart category. It's still kind of dumb, but we're gonna put it over here, kind of ordering that. Definitely the best of the prequels. That's it for the prequels. And then in between, the long gap between the Disney trilogy and prequels was the Clone Wars, which I watched a little bit of, and I didn't put a lot of animated stuff in this template or in this meme. I just wanted to add this one because it's influential to the like Star Wars franchise. It's a huge fan base, but this will be the first project that is put into Sounds Dumb and Is Dumb. There's a lot of influence by George Lucas in these films. Yeah, I'm gonna border is smart a little bit because there are some smart elements to it. There is some interesting stuff in there. There's too much dumb. And also, apparently, a lot of the show is just ripping off the books and kind of repurposing the plots into the Clone Wars, which is very annoying because the books, I think, is the best Star Wars that isn't made by George Lucas. We get The Force Awakens, and this is a big look smart is dumb, because a lot of people were tricked by this film. There's a lot of member berries in it. It kind of stuck with you as like a good film. But then by the time The Last Jedi came out, kind of just realized, well, geez, that's just a copy of A New Hope down to every single plot point. So that's not too good. So it looks smart, but it is dumb, and it's very dumb. So I'm going to put it here. But it's not the dumbest of the sequel trilogy. So we're going to have to put it right about there. The reason why it is dumb is like what they did with Han Solo is terrible. To have him split up with Leia and them not even explaining why they're split up, and then having Han, Luke, and Leia not together in that film. Mistake was repeated in future films. In The Last Jedi, Luke and Leia got to see each other, but not really because he was a stupid like Force ghost weird thing. A lot of wasted potential. And the reason why it's in the sound smart category, there's a lot of interesting stuff with like Poe and Finn, and a little bit with Rey, but then the second half of the film with her is just a bunch of dumb stuff. Rey is good at everything, kind of BS. So that is firmly in the sound smart but is dumb category. And please let me know if you think I'm wrong or disagree with these decisions. I would love to hear your thoughts on this awesome franchise. All right, let's see here. So The Last Jedi. This one was interesting because when I watched the trailer, I was like, ooh, like something's going on with Luke. He's saying some interesting things. He says the Jedi needs to end. It's like, why? Why is he saying that? There's got to be a really good reason for him to say that. And so it's like, oh, this is going to be deep. This is going to be the Empire Strikes Back of this trilogy. But it turned out that it is a big dumb. It's the dumbest one. It's the one that ruined Luke Skywalker, made by Roundhead Ruin Johnson. So he ruined the Star Wars film and uncovered that The Force Awakens was a pile of trash as well, because they just continued with Luke Skywalker being like, oh no, he was on that island just because he was suicidal and depressed and contemplated killing his own family, and dumb. Luke Skywalker, the person that successfully turned Darth Vader from the dark side to the light side, and then his nephew, he sensed the dark side. He hasn't even done anything yet. He just senses that there's some darkness in him, and his first thought is like, oh, maybe I should kill this guy. So very dumb. The biggest dumb I've ever seen. And then him drinking the green milk right out of the alien thing, and just an embarrassment to the franchise. This is the second film that is going to go into Sounds Dumb is Dumb category. Like the first time I heard the trailer, like my expectations were very, very low. And something that I will say about this film is made by Jar Jar Abrams, and Jar Jar, he has this thing where he's really good at copying really interesting motifs from other people's films. And so the first film he makes looks really good, and then as it settles, it's like, oh, that's really bad. And he does a lot of mystery box stuff where it's like, oh, what's this? Where'd the lightsaber come from? Who's Rey? Like, where does she come from? What's her backstory? Oh my gosh, Finn, his backstory is really interesting. Like, where's this character gonna go? I have so many questions. Like, all these mystery box things where they set up things like, oh, that's a good story for another time. It's like, oh, what? Okay, not for now, but for later. Okay. And then the second film that he makes in the franchise, he has to answer those questions, and he has no ideas. He has no ideas. Like, all of it's like, oh, Rey's grandfather is Palpatine, and Palpatine is still alive. And when you hear that laugh in the trailer, it's like, oh my gosh. Whoa, insane decision to bring back Palpatine, and kind of just ruins Anakin's sacrifice in the end of the film. And it's just, it just definitely ruins it. So I was surprised. I didn't know that something could rival the stupidity of The Last Jedi. So that's a big dumb right here. Sounds dumb and is dumb right there. That is a beautiful place for this thing to be. There's no, they're like fighting each other. These two films are like, I'm dumb, but I'm pretentious. And yeah, anyway, The Last Jedi was like, I want to subvert film tropes and Star Wars tropes, and I want to subvert all this stuff. You thought it was going to be this, but what it really is nothing. And they subvert something into nothing. And it's like, you think something's here? No, nothing's here. It's like, wow, that's crazy awesome, man. I'm so impressed by your storytelling. You had subverting things to nothing is amazing, dude. Anyway, okay. So that's a big sounds dumb is dumb. And let's see, the next film is, I know this came in between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, but kind of like a different category, so I wanted to analyze them differently. Rogue One, when it came out, was like, okay, this is a bunch of member berries, like, oh, Darth Vader, Death Star, AT-AT, Star Destroyers, oh my gosh, and so, wow, this is just a giant nostalgic bait. I'm actually struggling, I don't know where to put this, because I know it's not sounds dumb, is smart, and it's not really, I think it goes with the prequels category. I think it goes with the sound smart is dumb, but bordering is smart, because the story's pretty good. Like, the story itself is pretty good. It's just the characters are flat and there's a ton of nostalgic bait. Yeah, but the story is pretty good. I'll talk more about this film when we figure out where Andor goes, but yeah, this film I think is still in the sound smart but is dumb category. It's close to, I still would say it's not as good as the third prequel film, but it is pretty good. So I'd probably put it in between here. It's a little bit better than episode 1, but it's not as good as the third prequel film. Was this a good idea to make a meme out of the entire Star Wars films? I had a feeling that it might be the first bad Star Wars back when I thought that The Force Awakens was good. Ron from the previous episode said that the Star Wars trilogy was kind of experimental, which I guess I agree with that, but it was experimental in a weird way. I would say that prequels were experimental and were trying things that were like experimental, like let's test out 3D animation in live action with Jar Jar Binks, and it was like, whoa, pushing the edge of technology when it's way not ready yet. So there's kind of like a boldness to that, where the Disney trilogy was like, dumb, I'm gonna experiment, like what if Luke is a loser, depressed person? I wonder what would that look like if he wasn't the hero? And it's like, I can tell you before you even test the experiment, that's gonna suck. They were experimenting things that had like a really, if you had any brain at all, you would kind of know where it was gonna land. Yeah, it's like, I'm gonna experiment with throwing this rock at my own head. I'm gonna see what's gonna happen. I have no idea what the outcome of this experiment is gonna be. Whoosh! Oh gosh, I'm bleeding. It sucks. I hate this. Oh, what a wonderful hypothesis. That experiment went great. I never would have guessed. Okay, so this film, the Solo film, never, ever, ever, ever should have attempted to recast Han Solo. So these films, the Rogue One and Han Solo, seemed like testing the waters a little bit. It was like, all right, are these fans just obsessed with the main cast of Star Wars and that's all they want to see? So they made a Solo film, and then they made a film with with no original characters in the main cast, at least. And so it was kind of like an experiment. Like, let's see what we're gonna react. This film is a big. Oh, actually, let's see. This kind of actually let's put it up here. Let's put it up here because there was like a handful of smart elements to it. Like, there were some things that I liked. I like this character right here. I forgot his name, but this character and this character, their chemistry was really interesting, but the little robot character that's the smallest one on the poster is exactly right. That's exactly where she belongs, is in the furthest distance, not even in this film. Just get her out of the film completely. And the reason why this is a big looks dumb is dumb is because the most annoying character finally dies and we're like, oh, thank God. And then they plug her mind into the Millennium Falcon and basically erased all of Han Solo's accomplishments in the Star Wars films, because it was like basically she is the Millennium Falcon. So everything awesome that happens in the Millennium Falcon is because the ship has is its own character, which I know they say like, oh, the ships have their own character, but no, that the ships are just ships. And they're driven, and they might be great machines that have great capacity, but it's driven by a human being or a robot that's driving it. But like the decision to just nullify all of Han Solo's accomplishments in the future films was just terrible. But yeah, these two characters were the most interesting characters, but all this was a bunch of dumb. There's a bunch of member berries, and where did Han Solo get his name? Where did Chewie get his name? Why is it Chewie and not Chewbacca? It's like, oh, it's so dumb. It's a dumb film. So let's put that where it belongs, right in the dumb area. All right, now after Solo losing money, which is insane that Solo lost money. After that happened, they gave up on films. They're like, oh, I guess films aren't gonna work. And then they're just like, we're a show franchise now. I like the idea of doing limited series, like a 5-episode arc, kind of slower storytelling. Sounds like a good idea, but like only if like the creators of the Breaking Bad franchise were in charge of it. But that wasn't the case. Some real galaxy brains were in charge of it. The first episode of Mando was like, oh, this show might have something to it. And then as it went on, it was just got dumber and dumber. And even the first episode of Mando was dumb. There's a lot of dumb in the first episode, the first handful of episodes. There's a lot to it. It was almost like they thought the people that hated The Last Jedi wanted a story like Mando, which we didn't. Yeah, so Mando it kind of started making Star Wars fans be like, interesting. They're making a show about the Mandalorian that's not Boba Fett. Like, Boba Fett is the character that the Star Wars fans want to learn more about. So people started theorizing like, what if in the contract George Lucas gets a big chunk of any projects or any characters that were a part of the films that he wrote? Perhaps they're trying to make like copies of other characters, and so they get 100% of like the merchandising or whatever, because they're really downplaying any character that was written by George Lucas and then making clones of them. So a little bit of that started happening, and it started worrying the fans of like, what are they doing? Why didn't they just use Boba Fett? I don't understand. But speaking of Boba Fett, I do need to be transparent. I put a little asterisk next to the word all because I didn't watch all of The Mandalorian. I watched season 1, I watched season 2, and I was done. I didn't watch any episodes of season 3. I couldn't. It was just too dumb. And so let's look at the next project that was made. Boom, Book of Boba Fett. So they made The Mandalorian and they made the Book of Boba Fett. And it's really odd. Like, a Boba Fett character shows up in The Mandalorian. He was Boba Fett. And I think what Disney and Lucasfilm keeps on learning the wrong lessons. Like Solo, they recast Han Solo and the movie lost money. They didn't think it was because of the robot and the Millennium Falcon. They shouldn't have recasted Han Solo. They shouldn't have made a movie about Han Solo. They just shouldn't have done that. They should have recasted Boba Fett because he was in the mask as an adult the entire time. So you can just put whoever they want in there. Like, people were theorizing that Jesse from Breaking Bad was going to be Boba Fett. Perfect. Amazing actor, rugged, like put a couple scars on his face. He looks like he'd been through hell, and we know that he can perform like a character that just lives in the slums of society. It would have been a perfect casting. But instead of doing that, they learn the wrong lessons and they're like, oh, we have to bring back the 60-year-old man that played Jango Fett. And the thing is, no one really liked Jango Fett. Like, Jango Fett wasn't that interesting in episode 2. No one really liked him. The person doing an impression of him in the Clone Wars, like, people liked that voice impression. And then when they redid the voice of the Boba Fett character, like the line delivery of like, what if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. Like, this few lines, if you listen to the original performance, it's so good. Like, it's so rugged. It sounds like this guy's a bounty hunter. And then when they changed it with Tamar Morrison, I can't pronounce his name, but they shouldn't have brought back a 60-year-old man to play Boba Fett. It was bad. Oh yeah, and that's another thing, is in The Mandalorian, the first episode he's bounty hunting, and as soon as he gets Baby Yoda, he like ditches his whole bounty hunting career and is just like kind of being a good guy, and it's just like, wait, what? But that was the part of the Star Wars galaxy we wanted to see more of. We wanted to see more bounty hunters and their lives and just the underbelly of society. Underbelly? I don't even know if that's a term. We wanted to see more of that. We didn't want to see like good guy does good guy things throughout the galaxy, because that's what Jedis do. It's basically the Jedi story. So Boba Fett was fat and he was in Mandalorian, and it was like, oof, what an awful intro. And then the end credit scene showed like it's gonna be the book of Boba Fett, but it's like, that's a dumb name. Like, this is Star Wars. There's not many books. Like, the only books there were in The Last Jedi. Like, everything's digital. Like, why? And there wasn't even a book. It wasn't like he was diarying or writing things down or writing down his code of being a bounty hunter. And then the fact that he went in and killed a character that already died in the original trilogy and wanted to take the place of Jabba the Hutt. What? That's not where anyone wanted to see this character. There was no hint of what Boba Fett wanted besides catching his bounty. And the fact that it's like, oh, he was always dreaming to become a powerful crime lord. The whole premise of this was so dumb. And then, of course, the execution, and I have to be transparent, I didn't watch the entire show. I actually didn't watch the show because as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's not what I want to see. A show about a bounty hunter. Disney, show about bounty hunters. But Disney can't do bad guys. They cannot do bad guys. I don't want to watch this show. I want my own imagination of who Boba Fett is, but I was going to make this video. I was like, all right, I have to have at least a sense of the show before I can put it in a category. So I watched the first and last episode, and both of those episodes felt like filler episodes. They felt like episodes that you slap in the middle of a season where it's like, all right, we have to make this amount of episodes, so let's just have them walking and talking to each other a lot in this episode where nothing really happens. Long establishing shots. Let's just fill time. And that's how the first episode and last episode felt. And there's this interesting phenomenon that keeps on happening in Star Wars, which if you like read up a lot on like successful people like billionaires and business owners and artists that are globally known and everything, a really good way to do well in life is to have connections. And the way you have connections is by being a really nice, kind person to everybody you meet. You ask about their family. I think this is why there's so many bad shows in Star Wars. So that's like the number one way to do well in life, is having a lot of connections. And that is such an important aspect of doing well in life that I think that talentless people that just cultivate that skill. And the reason why I'm thinking that is because there's a quote from Kathleen Kennedy, and she said that Rian Johnson makes her feel very comfortable, which is really weird. Like, she's known for firing people. Like, the original directors for the Solo film were fired, and it was because they were trying to make it more jokey, and they went on to make the Spider-Verse film, which is interesting. The Last Jedi came out, and that was awful, made by Rian Johnson, and Kathleen Kennedy said Rian Johnson made her feel very comfortable, which is like, okay. So I think that part of being a successful person is so strong that you could actually have zero talent but just be a sweetheart. People will just give you 100% control. And the reason why I'm mentioning this when I'm talking about Boba Fett is that motif is actually in the show. Boba Fett has an enemy, and then he is like nice to them, and then hires them, and then they become good guys. He says something about like having friends to to Mando is like, oh, I have a lot of friends or whatever. And I think it's the director's philosophy in life of like, just be a kind person to everybody you meet. And that's probably why he's a successful director. But when it comes to ideas, like a creative idea, he didn't have anything good. Like he's not, it was a terrible show where, like, you know, George Lucas on set, he wasn't known for being like a sweetheart or really like, oh, he was the nicest person. He was actually like severely depressed during the creation of the Star Wars trilogy because he had like a creative vision and he was just trying to execute. And whenever people were trying to like get something out of him, he was just kind of he was focused on the project at hand. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a jerk to be like a good artist. That's absolutely not true, because that's not true at all. There's someone that can have this talent stack of being really, really kind and a wonderful person, but also be a really talented artist as well. They can have both of those skills, and those are like the superstars. But like there's people like Steve Jobs who was known to be like a massive jerk, and he built Apple, and it was just, I know later in his career when he kind of met up with the Pixar people, he became more of a kinder person, but that was something that he learned later in life, but he already became successful at that point. So it was kind of just an interesting thing that I've noticed. And I think that like Kathleen Kennedy has only really given projects to people that she thinks is who she likes, like who she likes as a person. Like, I don't think there's much critical thought when it comes to, is this person actually good for Star Wars and do they understand the lore and everything? But anyway, so that's just my thought about a lot of projects that are made. And that's a good, important thing to know, is that's how powerful being a nice person is, that you can have no ideas but be a nice person. So Book of Boba Fett, really, really dumb. But is it dumber than The Rise of Skywalker? Is it? I don't know. Because they both do really stupid things with original characters, and they bring people back from the dead. This one was only with Bib Fortuna. Yeah, it was dumber to bring back the Emperor than bring back Bib Fortuna, because he was just like a side character anyway. So I would say Boba Fett, ironically, Boba Fett is still better than that film. Just barely though. Okay, let's move on. And here's another heartbreak. Even this poster's stupid, like having his eye cut out with the Darth Vader in the suns. It's so dumb. Okay, so Obi-Wan Kenobi, when this show came out, I watched it, and they do something right in the first episode, and then they just completely drop it. They did the day in the life of Obi-Wan pretty well. Like, that was pretty interesting. Seeing him having to like cut meat and just survive, keeping his head down and everything. But everything that they did with Inquisitors, which is just, they're so bad. Dave Filoni without George Lucas kind of pointing him in the right direction makes really dumb decisions. When I watched The Mandalorian, in a lot of episodes I was like, oh, I'm getting Clone Wars vibes, like bad part of Clone Wars vibes, and then it just got worse and worse. And a lot of that came into this film, like bringing in Inquisitors into the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was just, they were so bad. And the fact that the show revolved around Princess Leia instead of Luke Skywalker, like his main attention should be making sure Luke is okay and isn't found. And yeah, so again, this was another original George Lucas character that they stupidified. Third sister, I forgot her name, but she was like, before this film came out, there was articles being written being like, racists are gonna hate this character, and the show hasn't come out. Why are you preemptively calling us racist and sexist? We haven't had a chance to see it yet. And then the character was terrible. And then it was like, we told you. And it's like, no, the character's awful, because it was another one of those situations. They do this a lot in Star Wars, where it was a bait and switch. It's called the Obi-Wan show. So you think you're going to see a lot of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but no, the moral heart of the show is Reva. That's her name, Reva. It's all about her. The moral focus of the show is her. And Obi-Wan doesn't do anything. He's just kind of taken from place to place and makes extremely stupid decisions. One of the most interesting things, which the EFAP gang was talking a lot about this, the last fight between Vader and Obi-Wan, which there shouldn't have been another fight with Obi-Wan and Vader. It doesn't make sense that there were more fights in between the two fights that we had. And how could you beat the two fights? You can't. Those two fights, they belong together. Anyway, the EFAP gang were laughing really hard about Vader lands on the planet Obi-Wan's on and then says, have you come to destroy me? And it was like, what? Well, no, Obi-Wan was on this planet and Vader landed on it. So Vader came, not Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan didn't come to Vader. Vader came to Obi-Wan. Why did they get that wrong? That's so basic. And the reason why they got that wrong is because it was a member berry and people didn't realize it. Because in episode 3, Obi-Wan lands his ship and walks out, and Anakin says, "Have you come to destroy me?" So they just copied the line, but without the context. And so it's like, dude, your member berries are literally ruining your show. Like, you're making Anakin so stupid. And it was just crazy that they just slapped that member berry on there and said, wait, but he said, "Have you come?" But Vader was the one that approached him. Anyway, these people they got very smooth brains. Very, very smooth, small brains. Anyway, so this looks dumb is dumb. Is it better than Boba Fett? It is better than Boba Fett, but barely better. All right, so after Obi-Wan Kenobi, I canceled my Disney Plus. I was like, I'm done. And it was like, but an Andor is coming out. And I was like, I don't care about Andor. I don't care. I didn't care about this. I didn't care about this movie that much. I was like, he was a flat character in that movie. He wasn't very well developed. It was a very plot-centered film, and the characters were just pieces on a board being slid around, and that's it. So I was like, I don't care. I'm not going to watch the show. And then Mueller and the gang said it was good. I did a podcast about it. I wish I could have gone further in depth about it. When the sequel comes out, I might do a retrospective in further detail, because we missed a lot of plot points. We only had like an hour and a half. It's just an excellent show, and it is with the original trilogy. Okay, so sounds dumb is smart is not an insult. In my opinion, that's better than sounds smart is smart. Yeah, so that's definitely not an insult at all. Doesn't take anything away from the film. All right, so Andor was great. So you guys have probably noticed this category is empty. What sounds dumb but is smart? Boom! The Family Guy Star Wars, Blue Harvest. This one, it just looks like a dumb comedy, but the jokes that they make in this film, they're really funny. It's really funny satire of the Star Wars trilogy. It respects the Star Wars trilogy though. So it's not like, oh, this is dumb. It's like, it just makes fun of it and is critical of it, but endearingly. And George Lucas himself approved it and loved it. Something Dark Side. I think the one that's probably the least good is the third one, which almost felt like they didn't want to make it. I don't know if that was a joke or not. I don't know. That one was good though. Robot Chicken is hilarious. It was another looks dumb is smart, but it's not even close to is dumb. I'm gonna shrink these guys. Yeah, I'm gonna move these guys over because they all belong on the same level. Oh, but this is interesting. Is The Mandalorian better than The Force Awakens? It is. The idea of like a bounty hunter that has to take care of a small infant, that's a good idea. That's like a 3-episode arc. It's not a 3-season arc for sure. And he puts that kid in danger so many times, and that's stupid, but better than anything that happened in The Force Awakens. Oh, the Acolyte, that's probably, that looks dumb, and it's probably gonna be dumb. So it most likely will be in here. Oh my gosh, I forgot one. There you go. This show, it just finished airing. So where does this show belong? Some people would thought it would be in this category because it was like, oh, Ahsoka from the Clone Wars, but Star Wars, they're probably not going to do a good job at it. But I actually think it's in this category. I thought the trailers looked dumb. Just everything about it looked dumb. It was almost trying to bring the Clone Wars art style into live action. Did not go well at all. But let's see, was this dumber than the Book of Boba Fett? Okay, ranking the dumbs is really difficult. It's pretty dumb. Yeah, dude. This is pretty stupid. Ahsoka dumb goes in between these two dumbs. Like all these shows, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, and Mando, all those shows pull down the Clone Wars and Rebels in smartness. Because it's like, oh, you're an idiot. You're really bad at this. So what do you guys think? Where do you think what do you think I got right? What do you think I got wrong? I'm actually really happy with this meme because this really solidifies my thoughts on the Star Wars franchise. What do you guys think? Did I put any film in the wrong category? I'd really like to know your guys' opinion. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye. Due to lack of entertainment, I became the contrarian. Decades later, my ship crashed onto Earth, and I finally got a chance to watch my favorite VHS tapes. When I was done, I was excited to learn that all of my favorite films have had sequels and spin-offs. Little did I know, I was about to go insane again.